Parable of 10 Virgins. The air was alive with excitement as 10 young women gathered under the soft glow of twilight, each holding a lamp to light their way. They were filled with anticipation, their hearts beating in rhythm with a joyous occasion, a wedding. The bridegroom was on his way, and they had been invited to join the celebration. Laughter and chatter filled the air as they prepared themselves for the moment when he would arrive. But among the 10 were 2 types of women, 5 who were prudent and 5 who were foolish. The prudent ones, careful and prepared, had brought small flasks of oil along with their lamps. They knew the night could be long and that their lamps might need to be replenished. The foolish ones, however, had brought only their lamps, their excitement perhaps overshadowing the thought of preparation. As the evening wore on, the bridegroom's arrival was delayed. The young women, their lamps flickering in the still night, began to grow drowsy. One by one, they drifted off to sleep, their lamps still faintly glowing in the darkness. Suddenly, at the stroke of midnight, a loud and joyous cry broke through the stillness. "Behold, the bridegroom! Come out to meet him!" The young women awoke with a start, their hearts racing with excitement and urgency. They scrambled to trim their lamps, preparing to meet the bridegroom and join the procession to the wedding feast. But panic soon spread among the foolish virgins. Their lamps were sputtering, the flames growing dim, and they had no oil left to keep them alight. Desperately, they turned to the prudent ones, their voices pleading, "Give us some of your oil, for our lamps are going out." The prudent women, though compassionate, shook their heads. "No," they replied gently but firmly. "There will not be enough for us and you too. Go instead to the dealers and buy some for yourselves." The foolish ones hesitated for a moment, torn between their desperation and the urgency of the moment. Then, clutching their sputtering lamps, they hurried off into the night, searching for oil. The prudent women, their lamps burning brightly, stood ready when the bridegroom arrived. His presence was radiant, his joy infectious as he led them to the wedding feast. The gates of the hall opened wide, and they entered together, the doors closing behind them. Meanwhile, the foolish virgins returned, their lamps newly filled with oil. But when they reached the wedding hall, they found the doors shut, the joyous celebration echoing faintly from within. Panicking, they knocked urgently on the door, their voices pleading, "Lord, Lord, open up for us." But from the other side came the bridegroom's solemn reply, "Truly I say to you, I do not know you." The word struck like a blow, and the foolish ones stood in stunned silence, the realization of their unpreparedness sinking in. The night, once so full of promise, had passed them by. Jesus turned to his disciples, his expression both tender and resolute. "Be on the alert then," he said, "for you do not know the day nor the hour." The disciples listened, the parable painting a vivid lesson in their minds. They saw in the lamps the light of faith, and in the oil, the preparation and vigilance required to keep it burning. The bridegroom's arrival was a moment of joy for the ready, but for those unprepared, it was a sobering reminder of the importance of living each moment in expectation of his return. The night deepened over the Mount of Olives, and the disciples sat in quiet reflection. They carried the parable in their hearts, resolved to live as the prudent ones, ready and watchful, their lamps filled and burning brightly. Parable of the Talents. In a bustling household, a wealthy master prepared for a long journey. Before departing, he called together 3 of his servants. Standing before them, he divided his possessions, entrusting them with varying amounts of talents, a considerable sum of money in those days. To the first servant, he gave 5 talents, to the second 2 talents, and to the third 1 talent. Each was given an amount according to their ability. With clear instructions, the master departed, leaving them to manage what had been entrusted to them. The first servant, eager to prove his worth, set to work immediately. He invested the 5 talents wisely, trading and negotiating with great care. Over time, his diligence bore fruit, and he doubled the money, gaining 5 additional talents. The second servant, likewise, wasted no time. With determination and skill, he worked with the 2 talents he had received, earning 2 more. But the third servant, gripped by fear, hesitated. He saw the 1 talent as a burden rather than an opportunity. Doubts clouded his mind. What if he lost it? What if he failed? Succumbing to his fear, he took the talent and buried it in the ground, hiding it from sight. There it remained, untouched and unused. After a long time, the master returned. His presence filled the house with anticipation as he summoned his servants to settle accounts. The first servant stepped forward, his face beaming with pride. "Master," he said, "you entrusted 5 talents to me. See, I have gained 5 more talents." The master's face lit up with joy. "Well done, good and faithful servant," he said warmly. "You were faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master." The second servant came next, holding the 4 talents he had earned. "Master," he said, "you entrusted 2 talents to me. See, I have gained 2 more talents." The master's joy only deepened. "Well done, good and faithful servant," he said. "You were faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master." Finally, the third servant approached, his steps hesitant, his face pale. He held the single talent in his hands, the same amount he had been given. "Master," he began, his voice trembling, "I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you scattered no seed. And I was afraid. I went away and hid your talent in the ground. See, you have what is yours." The master's expression darkened. "You wicked, lazy servant," he said sternly. "You knew that I reap where I did not sow, and gather where I scattered no seed. Then you ought to have put my money in the bank, and on my arrival, I would have received my money back with interest." Turning to his other servants, the master commanded, "Take the talent from him, and give it to the one who has 10 talents. For to everyone who has, more shall be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who does not have, even what he does have shall be taken away." The master's voice grew colder as he addressed the third servant one final time. "Throw out the worthless servant into the outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." The household fell silent, the weight of the master's judgment hanging heavy in the air. The first 2 servants, now entrusted with even greater responsibilities, carried their tasks forward with renewed purpose. But the fate of the third servant served as a sobering reminder of the importance of stewardship, faithfulness, and the courage to act. Jesus, looking at his disciples, allowed the parable to settle in their hearts. They understood its message clearly. The kingdom of heaven is entrusted to all, and each is given gifts and responsibilities according to their ability. But it is not enough to simply guard what is given. One must use it, invest it, and multiply it for the glory of the Master. Faithfulness and courage would be rewarded, but fear and neglect would lead to loss. The disciples, their hearts stirred, resolved to be like the faithful servants, ready to act with boldness and devotion, always prepared for the day their master would return. The judgment. The heavens were alight with glory as the Son of Man descended, his presence filling the earth with a brilliance that surpassed the sun. Clad in majesty and surrounded by a host of angels, he sat upon his glorious throne, high and exalted. The nations were drawn to him from every corner of the earth. A sea of humanity gathered before his radiant presence, their faces reflecting awe and trepidation. With authority like that of a shepherd tending to his flock, he began to separate the people, placing the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. The distinction was clear and deliberate. each group set apart according to his perfect wisdom. Turning to those on his right, his gaze softened, and his voice was filled with warmth and love. "Come, you who are blessed of my Father," he said, his words resounding with the promise of eternity. "Inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. Naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me." The righteous looked at him with astonishment, their voices trembling as they responded, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? And when did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or naked and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and come to you?" The king smiled, his eyes filled with compassion and truth. "Truly I say to you," he answered, "to the extent that you did it to one of these brothers of mine, even the least of them, you did it to me." A wave of joy swept through those on his right as they realized that their acts of kindness, however small, had not gone unnoticed. Every meal shared, every garment given, every comforting visit had been a gift to the king himself, and now they were welcomed into his eternal kingdom. Then the king turned to those on his left, his expression grave. His voice carried the weight of judgment as he said, "Depart from me, accursed ones, into the eternal fire, which has been prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not invite me in. Naked, and you did not clothe me. Sick, and in prison, and you did not visit me." The people on his left were stunned, their faces etched with disbelief. "Lord," they protested, "when did we see you hungry, or thirsty, or a stranger, or naked, or sick, or in prison, and did not take care of you?" The king's gaze did not waver. "Truly I say to you," he replied, "to the extent that you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me." Silence fell over the gathering as the reality of his words sank in. Those on his left were cast away into eternal punishment, the anguish of their neglect now a stark and unescapable truth. Meanwhile, those on his right stepped forward, entering into eternal life, their joy overflowing as they joined the king in his glorious kingdom. The throne stood radiant, a reminder of justice and mercy perfectly intertwined. And as the scene faded, the words of the king lingered in the hearts of all who had witnessed acts of love and service, even to the least, are treasures of eternal significance. The righteous, their lives marked by compassion and selflessness, would dwell in the light of the king forever.